your right to an attorney in a red flag case. Why legal help is crucial. So can you afford an attorney in a red flag case? Do you even have a right to an attorney in a red flag case? Navigating these laws without legal representation can be extremely difficult. So do you have a right to an attorney? Yes, you have a right to be represented by an attorney. Now, this right applies to the final retention hearing. So that initial hearing where, let's say, officers come in and take your guns and they have the initial retention hearing, you're not necessarily going to have an attorney for that, right? And that's just the probable cause standard. But when we get to the clear and convincing final retention hearing, you do have a right to an attorney. So why does this matter? Why is it so important that you utilize your right to an attorney? Well, if you don't want your guns to be taken, then it might be really important because, again, your attorney's got to understand what the difference is between probable cause, preponderance of the evidence, clear and convincing. What these are, they're going to understand. And so that can be really important because if your attorney doesn't understand, or if you don't understand kind of what level the state needs to get to meet their burden, it can be really difficult for you to fight this on your own. So not only do you need to understand the standard, but you also need to understand and be able to navigate the procedural requirements and deadlines. For example, there's going to be that post-seizure retention hearing, then the final retention hearing. When are they set? When are they not set? When maybe a court says, hey, you need to submit evidence by X date, or you need to do this or that by this date. So when do you need to gather evidence? How might you gather evidence? Maybe you don't know how. Maybe you're like, hey, I'd like to get my doctor records. I don't know how. Hey, I need this person to come and maybe testify on my behalf. Maybe how can I challenge the state's evidence? Maybe the state's saying, oh, we're going to have this doctor who says that he recently diagnosed you with schizophrenia. Okay. Is there a way to challenge that? Okay. Well, did the doctor prescribe you meds? Has the doctor seen you since? Has the doctor said, hey, you look like you are taking your medications. I think you're better, right? You might not know how to ask these questions and how to challenge that. Also, making just legal argument and making objections. You might not know if something is objectionable. Maybe you don't understand the nuances of whether or not something can come in or can't come in. That's where it's important to have an attorney. And especially when we're talking about your right to have a firearm, it can be really important because the difference between having an attorney and not having an attorney could be the difference in you not having your guns for 6 months plus and you retaining your firearms. Now, it is important to note that while you do have a right to an attorney, that does not mean you have a right to a court-appointed attorney. And that's where the fact that a red flag petition is civil, not criminal, you have a right to an attorney. The court's not going to say, oh, okay, well, we're going to appoint an attorney for you because this isn't a criminal matter. So certain criminal rights you have, they don't necessarily apply. So while it can be costly to hire an attorney, oftentimes the benefits are going to far outweigh what the costs are because if you're not effectively represented, then you're probably not going to be protecting your rights very well. So if you have any questions and you want to hire an attorney to represent you in a red flag petition, call us at the Marc Lopez Law Firm at 317-632-3642. And remember, always plead the fifth.